Hey everyone, welcome to Coast to Coast Podcast. I'm joined today with my co-host, Mr. Maverick. We are going to be going on into our 8th episode of this podcast, and we're just going to kick things off. It's 1 week before trade deadline, really only 5 days or so. And then near the end, we'll probably talk about our fantasy. I was talking with him, and might do a cutoff and do a second video for that. So keep an eye out for that. We're going to switch it up from what we've been doing a little bit. Same kind of talks, but just more of an outline of what we're going to do. So, Mr. Maverick, welcome to the podcast for your 8th, 9th time, whatever. It's just me and you,
there.
but
Yeah, well, there are people watching, so I mean, thanks. Yeah, it's been a pretty crazy week really around the NHL. Like it's got a few trades, got some, unsatisfied personnel about some officiating. What's bothering you most right now?
yeah, I think for me it's the trades. To me the trades seem to be coming in quicker, faster than previous years. We're still 5 days out, and I think we had, what was it, 6 trades in the past 2 or 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little bit of a lull from our last podcast. It happened right when we did the podcast. We had Zucker get traded, and we talked about that last week. But since then, I think there's been 6 trades. I have it right up here in front of me. There's a couple, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 trades,
Wow.
if you can believe it, since last time we were talking on the podcast.
I didn't think it was that many. That's a lot. Wow.
Yeah,
Seems like most of the defensemen are kind of coming off the board, though.
it is seem like that. And one trade that we'll talk about, I think, with Scandella is interesting. It's the second time he's been traded already this season.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to start with the the oldest trade, and then
Yeah,
bring
I
that
think
up,
so.
and we'll go from there?
Let's work down, and we'll just go through it. We might go like we normally do. I'm sure it's one of my favorite parts. At first, I was like, but looking at the standings, we always do our predictions.
Yeah,
So
that's one of my favorite parts too.
at this point, I kind of put I'm putting the trades up on the screen, so it's gonna show. It's not gonna show us on the webcam. I'm
Okay.
brought to you by Sportsnet, I guess, because I'm on their website. So the first trade, so there's 2 trades. February 16th. So when was that? That was Sunday. So within the past 4 days, we've had 9 trades. I think that's quite a bit.
Probably more coming too.
Definitely got to be more coming.
So what's the first one?
First one happened between the Islanders and the Devils. The Islanders acquired Andy Green. They gave up David Quenneville and a second-round pick, so prospect and a pick for Andy Green, who I believe was the captain of the Devils.
Yep, he was. Yep, Quenneville is depth defenseman.
Yeah, and I think
From what I know.
I don't know much about prospects, so I'm not going to bring too much to the table on that.
I've heard his name a bunch. I heard today he was a defenseman. I'm not entirely confident saying that, but I am pretty sure that he is a defenseman. I just don't want to be wrong on that. Some people are wrong on that, but some people are wrong on who plays forward or who plays defense. But
Well, if you're Tory and you're always saying all these defensemen are going to become forwards anyway, it doesn't really matter.
there's only a couple that can do that.
I know.
There's only a certain build of defensemen that can do that.
So really, I guess this trade's just adding depth to the Islanders. Nothing too much to move the needle.
Islanders have had a couple injuries and whatnot, so they really need somebody who can step in and just play. But
Yep.
there's an interesting connection as well between Lou Lamoriello, who was the one who signed him to that original contract and also named him captain.
That's a good point.
So there's a fit there. There's some familiarity. There's some comfortability. Plus, he doesn't really know Trotz very much, but, I mean, let's be real. Trotz and Lou have some similar
Does this
philosophies.
change your opinion of the Islanders at all? I already know the answer, but
No, because they had some injuries. So
Yeah.
they're plugging a hole and it's still not fully plugged. I still think they need another depth defenseman, even a guy like a Marincin, like just another guy who can play some minutes in a pinch. But yeah,
okay.
I think it's a solid pickup, but nothing too special.
Nothing too crazy, yeah.
Yeah.
The Devils were at it again about 3 hours later, same day. They trade off Blake Coleman to the Lightning, and they get again a prospect, Nolan Foote. So they're picking up people that are like sons of family members and all that stuff. So that's what they're going for, which is basically half of the prospects these days, it seems.
Do you know much about Nolan Foote?
I do not. I just know his dad. Is his dad Adam? Yeah, his dad just got fired in Kelowna.
And he's got a brother as well. Oh, he got fired.
He got fired, I believe, just today or yesterday in Kelowna.
Really?
Yeah.
For? Do you know?
I guess they just weren't doing well. I don't know. I don't follow the WHL at all.
Well, I mean, that's where Nolan played. I think actually both the Foote brothers played there, I want to say.
Okay.
So it's interesting that now that they're both gone, or I think the other Foote's leaving this year, or he was drafted last year. I think this is his last year before he leaves, something around that. So it's interesting the timing there. But Nolan Foote's a guy I always wanted the Leafs to take when they had some opportunities. He's not the absolute best skater, but he can get around, and he's got an NHL shot. He's had an NHL shot since junior. I don't think he's a top-line player. He's probably a middle six player somewhere. Probably a third liner who can get the puck in, provide a little bit of grit, and get lots of shots on net. Like a poor man Kachuk.
Yeah, okay.
Without the physicality and annoying part.
Yeah, I think this first round pick that they sent back to the Devils, the Lightning did. I believe it's Vancouver's first round pick. Yes.
It is.
Yeah.
Unprotected.
Yeah, but I don't see
so
that.
So if Vancouver misses, it will be a lotto pick.
In theory. Okay.
So, just an interesting...
I thought it was a lot to give up for Blake Coleman, but now that I've had a chance to look at his contract, I think it's fairly good. Like, he's a very, very low $1.8 million cap hit.
And he can play all around your lineup.
Exactly.
He can go up to the top line if you need a spark. He can go play on the fourth line if the guys are clicking.
And they got him for another year, so...
He can kill penalties. Yeah, low cap.
No, solid pickup for the Lightning for sure.
I think he's right-handed too, which I don't think the Lightning have a lot. I think more of their forwards are lefties than righties, so that always helps too with flexibility. I mean, you can't really add a value to that, but there is value within that. So,
all right, cool.
What's the next trade?
Big one for my hometown here. So the next day, 8:30 at night, the Canucks pick up Toffoli, who suits up tonight for the first time. Expected to be between JT Miller, or not between, but on the line with JT Miller and Pettersson. So that's potentially huge for if you're a fantasy pickup. I saw Dynasty picked him up instantly today. I had planned to pick him up today as part of my week, but he beat me to the punch.
Woke up nice and early.
Yeah, I think he was like a 2 a.m. or a 1 a.m. fucking.
Was it
pickup? Yeah. Wow. So
for you though.
Yeah, for me. For Pacific.
So yeah, that would have been when he probably was, getting ready for work or whatever, or on the train, one of the two.
Yeah. Okay. So Canucks give up Tim Schaller, who's like a fourth liner or whatever. Tyler Madden, who is considered one of their big prospects, and I'm going to get into this in a second. Second round pick and a conditional fourth round pick, to which I don't quite know the conditions about yet. I didn't really look too deep into that.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a big deal. It's a fourth rounder.
Yeah.
Potentially maybe it could be a third. Who knows?
Yeah.
That's in 2022, so that's 2 years down the road. So with Tyler Madden, Jim Benning did a press conference yesterday when this trade went through. And part of the concern with him around here was that he's a small guy who from what I understand, he was ranked somewhat high in the prospects around the league. But when Jim Benning was doing his press conference yesterday, he used the number 7, which he kind of got torn apart on the media today for it, saying we have 7 prospects in Utica right now, which is our AHL team, that are going to be in the NHL in the next couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty ambitious, and he's been kind of getting torn apart for that today.
Was there a name list or just 7?
He didn't say the name. He said 7, so the speculation obviously begins. And you can go down the list. I'm not super familiar with prospects, like I said, but having lived here now for 4 years, I kind of gotten familiar with a bunch of names. So
The only thing that I have to say about that is don't doesn't Vancouver have that Russian guy? What's
Goldobin,
his name? Yeah.
yeah.
No. Vasily Podkolzin.
Oh yeah, they do.
But isn't he not in Utica? Isn't he in Russia right now?
I believe so. Yeah.
So maybe
Maybe
he
I'm
misspoke
I'm
with that
misquote.
number.
Yeah, he would have included him.
That's what I mean. Like I feel like he
He
has
might
to
not
be
have
in the
said
top
Utica.
three of
That might have been
seven.
me just saying that.
Oh, okay, maybe in the system or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I was gonna say if he said like 3 or 4 on Utica and 7 in the system, I'd be like, okay, but 7 on Utica, I'm like that's
No,
bold.
yeah. You're probably right. I'm
Okay,
misquoting.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. Sorry, I just got to break down the prospect thing there.
No, for sure. That's why we have you. You're the prospect guy more than I am. I'm just a pretty face.
I love prospects because everybody can have their opinion, and nobody really knows who's going to be right until 3 or 4 years down the road, if not 5 or 6 years.
Yeah. So with this Toffoli, what do you think? I think like it's okay. It's an okay. I think the price is it's up there for a rental. That's what he is. I don't.
But he's a Canadian boy. He might
Yeah.
resign,
It could.
and that might be the condition.
Very true. I think with here too, they were keeping Brock Besser under wraps a little bit, like 2 to 3 weeks. They were saying. I think they were purposely saying that just to.
It's not a coincidence that it came out hours after he was done for the season. I can guarantee you in trade negotiation. Oh yeah, no, he'll be back in a couple weeks. No, he's not done for the season. Like we don't really have to get it forward because other people would have been like, "You're desperate." He'd be like, "No, I'm not. He'll be back in a couple weeks." Okay, we got our guy. Yeah, he's done for this season. Don't need to hold.
That's
that
what
card
it feels
anymore.
like kind of
You know what I mean?
happened.
Yeah,
But
that's
I'm
the
sure
way
that's what happened.
That's how it smelled to me.
Yeah, cool. What do you think? Okay, trade.
I think it's solid. I mean, it sucks because they don't have Besser and they don't have a couple of the other guys that are in the depth of the forward group. But like,
yeah, Ferland's done for the year. I don't know if you heard that.
Yeah, I heard about that, but they're probably going to pick up Simmons too.
Allegedly, I don't know yet.
That's all I'm hearing, and forever it's only been Vancouver. So like, if it's not,
they're gonna
assume somebody swoops in last minute, but
guaranteed they're gonna do something.
Yeah,
they're not done here, and it just goes to show with the way that Benning's been building his team. He's kind of been building it with like, we're trying to get better right now, and that has to go back to the ownership too. The Aquafino brothers I hear this they're just impatient. So, here we are.
Which, hey, I mean, if you're impatient and you make the right trades and you end up going far, like 3 or 4 rounds, or you win a cup, I mean, Vancouver could be the Carolina of last year.
It's possible.
Probably won't be, but they could be.
To me, if you win a cup, all is forgiven for 10 years at least, isn't it? If you sacrifice the next 5 years for a cup. Not all, but people are going to forget because they always forget about
I would say all for 5.
Yeah, maybe.
Let me ask you a non-hockey thing. How long does Messiah and the Raptors have until they start getting the pressure on? How long is that honeymoon going to last?
Fair enough. That's a good point. But they're going to be good for this year too. Like they're still in the playoffs now.
Yeah, and I mean they've got a pretty sick future I think ahead of them. But anyways,
that's a good point.
It's the only kind of thing I could think of to kind of compare it to. That wasn't necessarily in this world, but yeah. Yeah, I think it's a good trade. I think it's good for them. They're going to need probably 1 or 2 more pieces on that team to really make a run for it.
Yeah.
That's the thing is like teams need depth to make a run for it. And that's why at this point, not to sway to Toronto quickly, but I think Toronto needs to consider trading off. Their depth is gone.
Yeah.
Even if they go on a run, they don't have any more depth to go to. But anyways, back to the trades.
We'll get to that.
We'll get to that later.
So now we're leading up till yesterday. This one I didn't even know, probably because I don't even know if I know these 2 players. Joey Keane.
Gauthier?
Yeah.
Keeney?
Yeah. Keane and Gauthier.
Yeah. So I don't know much about Keane. Isn't it Keeney?
Keeney, it might be. I don't. Like I said,
I think it's Keeney. K-E-A-N-Y. But it's I only know a little bit about Julian Gauthier. I think he played for Team Canada Juniors once, maybe twice.
Okay.
I think he played for them. He might have been a spare. He might have got a late cup, but I remember him being in the camps. Pretty sure he was on one of the teams.
Yeah.
But same kind of thing, bit of a Nolan Foot light. He always had a really good shot. It wasn't quite NHL ready, but he was kind of a guy who needed the puck a lot and liked to shoot it. So like I liked his talent, I liked the skill set, but I wasn't quite sure it would ever be in a top 6 role. So I mean, how many teams want a third liner who's not the best defensively but likes to take the puck and get it to the net and shoot? There's a few out there. So, I mean, maybe there's a role, maybe not with his original.
The way I look at this, without even looking at the players, it just feels like a hockey trade. It's one player for one player. Both teams trading where they have access for what they might need in the future.
This guy's not really fitting in here. Let's swap them and see what happens. I think they're different positions too, so I think
that's why I figure. Without even looking
reshuffle a little bit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So later on in that day, the Ottawa Senators for a third-round pick deal Dylan DeMello
Winnipeg.
To Winnipeg, yeah. Mm-hmm. Again, I think he's a defenseman, right? I'm not super familiar with this guy.
Yeah, he's been playing top pair actually with Shabbat all year in Ottawa.
Okay, so
which pushed Hainsey down to play with Zaitsev.
Okay.
Which, from everything I've heard, is he's had a fantastic season. And from what I've heard, he's been a legitimate top pairing skating defenseman. But, I mean, you're in Ottawa. So, I mean, it probably means you're number 4 skating defenseman, which is solid. Mm-hmm. Like, it's good for Winnipeg, but he's also going to Winnipeg where he's probably being used higher than that. So he's almost going from a spot where he's in to another spot similar to where he's in.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes those swaps don't always work out. So, I mean, it probably will. But let's see.
He's on an expiring contract, too, so that works out for Ottawa. They managed to get an asset for someone that's coming off the books and who really wants to re-sign in Ottawa, right? So
I think Winnipeg wants to make it just because they're pissed off and everything, and I think that they want to get 2 defensemen. So instead of getting a better defenseman, I think they're trying to get two like second-tier defensemen. I don't know what other ones are left, but we can get to that later.
I'm sure there's some, yeah. Next trade, same day yesterday, Brendan Dillon from the Sharks.
Washington.
Yeah, to Washington. Second-round pick and a conditional third. Again, I'm not up to...
Washington's terrifying.
You think so?
They've got Dillon and Gudish on their back line. Even if that's your penalty kill. And then you've got Carlson on your power play and a 5-on-5. And then beyond that, I don't even remember who else they have on the back end. But
they don't have Orlov anymore, do they?
I don't think so, no. But they have, what's his name? Can't remember his name. I think they have Kempney too, don't they? Or did he? That's where he played last year. Anyways, it's good. I think it's a good ad because somebody said this the other day. I don't remember who it was, but they're like, Washington now has Dillon, Gudish, and Wilson on the same team to go with Ovechkin, Kuznetsov's not a small guy. Like, watch Washington go out and get Simmons.
That'd be pretty...
Yeah. Washington's scary. They're a big, strong team. They're built for the playoffs. Like,
it'll be interesting. They're going to be an interesting team to watch. I just hope my Pens don't match up against them.
They'll have to eventually.
Yeah, maybe. All right. Anything? I don't think there's much else to say about that trade. Sharks getting someone expiring contract.
Win-win.
Yep. Rental players. I guess one thing to note is that these rental players are going for second-round picks.
Mm-hmm.
And
which
again,
people who are going for it, second-round picks, the best asset you can give, that isn't a first. So, like, they've almost valued them less than other picks because it's like it's worth more in an asset than it actually is in the second.
Yeah.
But
it's funny because this next trade is basically exactly the same. A defenseman for a second-round pick in 2020 and a conditional fourth-round pick in 2021.
Is that the Scandella one?
Yeah, so it's Scandella.
So wasn't he traded for a fourth 3 weeks ago?
Yes, he was. And that's had Jesse just flipping his shit. That, again, obviously the Sabres are going to fuck even this possible thing up. They trade him for a fourth, and then Montreal immediately flips him for a second. Sounds like a Buffalo thing to do, is what he would say.
Yeah, I don't think we should get into Buffalo.
Yeah, let's please not. I think the game yesterday spoke enough.
Oh God.
Oh God.
Thank God I fell asleep. I was so exhausted, and it was so funny because I was so excited to watch the game because I hate, but I love watching Buffalo games. I get up for them.
Yeah.
Just because no matter what building, it seems to always be a bit of a mix, and it's always, a bit of a, energetic crowd. So I waited all afternoon. I was like, okay, I'm going to lay down for a nap. Just laid down. I was like, I'm not tired. I was like, whatever, I'll just make a coffee. So just before the game, I made a coffee. I went downstairs and I sat down. I fell asleep. I woke up, coffee was cold, and the second period, there was like 18 minutes left in the second period. I think it was like 2-1 at the time.
In the Buffalo game?
For Buffalo, yeah.
No, it would have been 4-3 or something.
Was it? Okay.
The second period, yeah. The first period was 4-2 or something.
Was it? I must have been groggy because I was barely awake, and I think it was that because I looked at it and I was like, oh. And then I fell right back asleep, and I woke up at like 10:45, and I'm like, I was just watching like the highlights of all the games. Then I was like, "Oh, game's over." Missed that game.
Nice.
So I'm glad I didn't have to watch that misery. I watched 5 seconds in a drowsy state.
Nice.
I can't watch the Leafs right now.
Okay, so do you want to skip over this Leafs trade that came up next, or no?
Which one's that again?
So, Dennis Mulligan.
Is that the next trade?
That's the next trade. So we're on to today now. There's been 2 trades today. Contrary to popular belief this morning that someone thought Blackwood got traded.
Fairly, what was the deal? Reimer for Blackwood and Vatanen with picks or something involved?
It was Reimer and a defenseman. I forget who the name was for Blackwood and Vatanen and picks. Yeah, I don't know, dude. That's why I put the question mark when I said this doesn't.
That's fair.
Didn't seem
when
right
you
to
said
me.
that. I was like, okay, Vatanen. If you said Vatanen, I would be like, okay, sure. Like, I'm surprised they went for him, but like, whatever. But when you were like Blackwood, I was like,
yeah, that's the part I didn't understand.
What?
There. So I'm glad it
Blackwood, Mrazek, and Reimer are all the same to me.
Yeah,
different ages and stuff, but they're all in the same caliber. One's no better than the other. If it was like because I think Blackwood's on a low contract, Reimer's got his bigger contract. So if it was like okay, we got to shuffle these pieces just because of cap purposes. Plus,
it didn't make sense.
Get a veteran goalie, okay, but like, it didn't smell right to me when you said it. I was like, I don't know, maybe you have the team wrong or something.
Yeah,
maybe it was somebody else.
I was wrong. Don't trust me for your first source. That's for sure.
No, I'll bring it up though, because I like to call it out.
So the Leafs get Dennis Mulligan and give up Mason Marchment.
I think it's Malgin. Denny Malgin.
Malgin.
He's Swiss.
Yeah, it makes sense. Denny
Malgin. But he played in Switzerland with Matthews. I don't know how much time he played on Matthews' line.
When you said that today, I didn't even know that Matthews played in the Swiss League.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yep. He went, because he was basically too good everywhere he went to the Swiss League. Okay. But, like, that's why I think people really need to give Matthews a bit of a fucking break. Because, so if I sum up his life, Matthews grew up in Arizona, and then he moved to somewhere else because he wanted more hockey. But when he was where he was at, he was always the best player. So it was just like, okay, go out there and score goals. Go out there and score goals. Go out there and score goals.
Yeah.
So what made him so good at scoring goals? By him going out there and scoring goal after goal after goal. So what was he good at? Scoring goals. So as he became older, teams wanted him to score goals. So he came in and he scored goals. So as he continued to score goals, he got good at scoring goals. So he advanced to the next level, and he was too good for his age group. So he goes to Switzerland. Guess what he did there?
Scored more goals?
He scored more goals. So what did he not do?
Play defense. Yeah.
So he played 5-on-5, and he got all these offensive opportunities, and he scored fucking goals. So why do the Leafs expect him? Like, the stupidest thing when Babcock said he could be the next Jonathan Toews was the stupidest comment, because that was disrespectful to Toews, because Toews is one of the best at this craft of defensive
for sure. He's
play.
Been doing his whole career.
I will not deny that Matthews might be one of the most skilled players in the league in terms of lifting sticks and stealing pucks, especially from areas where you don't think he has a chance to. There's so many times where guys are skating out of the zone and you're like, oh, he can't. Oh, damn, he just did. And it feels like he like extended his stick, lift the stick, which at that point you have less leverage, right?
Yeah.
Which just proves how strong you are. He lifts the stick and he gets the puck. But anyways, when he's scoring goals and doing all this other things that I'm referring to, he's only had to play defense. Even the first year when he came into the NHL and scored 40 goals, he only played on the offense. He played on the power play. He was put out on offensive face-off draws. He was protected. He was sheltered. So what's his? This is his fourth year, I think.
I don't know. He's 22, so like
I think
22 years old. What was
I
I
think
doing at
this is
22?
his
Yeah.
fourth season, and again, he's at right. He's at 22, which most prospects don't even start kind of coming into their own now. But people think that he's supposed to be this guy who is the ultimate center. And he's never had to do anything but score goals.
Crosby was
So,
not
like-
the ultimate center his first few years. It took him. He is now, but like
He was terrible at faceoffs when he first came in. Like,
Exactly.
terrible. Now he's one of the best at it because he had to work 6 years at it. Like, anyways,
when Matthews is 27, 28, he will be a weapon.
he will be
Already
his
is a weapon.
size, as long as he doesn't get hurt. That's the only thing that
Yeah,
scares me,
that's
just because
always
his
a
shoulder
concern.
injuries, and only because he's not afraid. He cuts to the middle because that's where you need to go to get your shot off to score your goals, right? So, like, there's gonna be times, clean hits, hopefully, where it's just shoulders. Poor hits might concuss him and cause different issues. But, like, when there's a big guy like that who cuts to the middle and you know he can snipe the top shelf from the top of the circle, you're gonna get on him. You're gonna step up. Like, there's probably gonna be 2 or 3 hits a year where it's like, ooh, like I hope he gets up, and maybe he doesn't, or maybe he gets hurt, right? But it's gonna happen. Like, it's not gonna happen.
Well, that's one thing
Right.
about hockey too. It's pretty much inevitable that you're going to be hurt. Even Crosby had his concussion
Mhm.
issues. Even this year, he missed a handful of games for a hernia. So, like those kind of things, as a professional athlete in a contact sport, it's inevitable. It seems.
And if you have these hernias or these other ailments that limit you and basically say, okay, now you can only produce at an 85 or 88 or 90% capacity, yeah, you're still one of the best players in the world, but like, you're not you. Like, you gotta make that call sometime, right? But
Totes.
anyways, I could go off for hours on the Leafs right now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, we'll get there.
not even the Leafs, but just the whole bubble of Leafland. I'm so fucking sick of it.
Yeah, I'm
But anyways.
glad I get to watch it from afar. But we'll get to we'll get there. We're gonna
We'll
go
come
to
back, yeah.
this last trade. Let's see, where was it? Okay, we got my boys, the Golden Knights, picking up Alec Martinez. Again, we see a second round pick going out for a defenseman in the 2020
Was it
draft.
2 seconds?
Yeah.
Okay.
But the difference to the other defensemen before is that they're giving up a second round pick as opposed to the fourth round conditionals.
But Martinez has an extra year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I guess that's where you pay the difference. But to me, this is going to concrete my predictions of Vegas winning the Pacific.
Yeah, I was looking at that the other day. Fleury's playing better too.
Pardon? Fleury is
Fleury
he's
doesn't he
starting
have
to
2
come out.
shutouts in his last like 5, 6, 7 starts?
No, I don't think so.
He has at least 1.
Don't think so.
I'm quite
look it
confident
up.
he has
Well,
at least 1.
I know he was on a huge pace for it against the Capitals, but then they popped in a couple goals. I'm really slow because I spelled his name wrong. Oh yeah, you're right. I forgot they shut out the Islanders 1-0. Which
Yeah.
the Islanders, your boys. So that pretty much wraps up the trade deadline up until this point.
Mm-hmm.
We still have 4 days, 5 days. So 5 days to go. Last day being Monday, I guess.
Do you have the trade bait board up?
I do not.
Pull it up quickly.
Is it TSN you said?
I think so, yeah. TSN trade bait board.
It's got to be a big board though, isn't it?
I think they do 50. Maybe 40.
Oh, and they have like a power ranking. It's like going up or down or okay.
Yeah. So I'm not looking at it.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull it up and put it out. It's on the podcast right now. So like,
Okay. Name the player, and I'll tell you where I
so
think he's going.
this is interesting. They even have like cap space or like first round pick or something on here.
Yeah.
So I guess I don't know. There's this is deep actually, and I would love to talk about a lot of these guys. But number one on their list is Chris Kreider.
I would say it's if he does not stay in the New York Rangers, it's either Boston, Vegas, or St. Louis.
Okay. I am leaning towards him staying right now, but I know we talked about this last week about why he would be a good fit in Boston, I think.
Mm-hmm. Boston's trying to be aggressive from everything I hear.
Yeah. So
I kind of hope they go get Trocheck's from Florida to make them weaker so the Leafs can backdoor their way into the playoffs.
Oh, to make Florida weaker?
Yeah.
It's possible. So after that, it goes to defenseman. We got Sammy Vatanen. So there's like a lot of different teams that this could potentially go to. And someone needs a defenseman. I guess he's potentially go there. He could potentially get teamed up with Kyle Palmieri. Blah.
Yeah.
So they could package together maybe somewhere.
I think they'd be better off to separate them, but I mean, I do think Vatanen might end up in Carolina.
Okay.
Not with Blackwood.
Yeah.
I've heard them connected a lot, and I've heard that it's Toronto's first round pick, but I would have to assume that they'd also be getting something else as well. They wouldn't be able to get the first just for Vatanen with him being a rental.
That's
like
right,
maybe
yeah.
they'd get like Miles Wood, or maybe they could get I don't know who else they could get, but
Mackenzie Blackwood. Just joking.
maybe they could get Black. Yeah.
And that's funny you say that because right down. I'm gonna skip like two guys here. Right down fifth on their board is Carolina's first round pick.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's where you see that connection possibly.
Potentially with Dumba.
Yeah.
I think they want to get another defenseman so that they can be even that much better because when Hamilton gets back for maybe the playoffs, if they can make it, that decor makes their goalies better by default, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, really that trade makes two positions stronger. So I think that they'd be willing to do that. But it would have to be a guy like Dumba where they get 3 more years. Like, maybe they go get Manson. And then all the Leafs fans lose their mind because somebody else got Manson.
What do you think?
And it would make it even worse because the Leafs would be like, oh, we gave our first up to Carolina, and then they turned it into Manson. I can see it now.
That makes me ask, since we are already on the topic of him, Dumba. I don't know if I see him being traded. With the years left on his contract, they make a coaching change. I hear that
He's played well since.
Pardon?
He's played well since.
That, but also like 3 years. I hear their owner is similar to Vancouver's in that just super impatient.
Mm-hmm.
So I would not
Plus
see them.
They've committed all this money to Studer and Parise and Dubnyk that they can't just turn their backs on.
Exactly. So like, I don't see them being as sell-off-ish as like New Jersey is or any of those. In reality, they're still even in the conversation for a playoff spot at this point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think with the NHL parity in the West, it's even more obvious the parity there. Like if you're in the playoffs in the West, I think you have a chance to go to the Cup.
Yeah.
Any of the 8. I think the East.
I mean,
is a
there's
little
a
more
couple
top-heavy.
teams that are. I would say that the West, St. Louis, and Dallas are probably the favorites. They're the most complete team for sure that don't have obvious holes. And Vegas, I think, could maybe get into that category.
They could, yes, agreed.
And maybe Calgary if their goaltending can figure their life out.
Yeah,
but I wouldn't even know. I wouldn't stretch that far. Never mind.
Yeah.
But yeah. Who else on the trade board do you see that strikes out or you're curious
we got
on?
Jean Gabriel Pajot.
I don't care.
My dog is loud right now. I don't know if you can hear him.
A little bit.
I think he goes. but where I don't know.
Insignificant. He's a solid little player, but let's be real. He was their third line center when they were a good team.
Mm-hmm.
So like he's a third line center who got an opportunity to get more time, and he produced at a higher level. Somebody's going to give him a contract that he will not live up to unless it's Ottawa. So I think that teams are mindful of that, and I think for some reason Ottawa wants to keep him. I mean, he works hard. He's a good leader, but I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't think it matters, to be honest. I don't think he's the biggest difference maker.
Ilya Kovalchuk is kind of interesting because it'd be the third team for him.
I said Pittsburgh the other day, and you said no way. I'm curious why you said that.
Because I don't think he's a personality fit in Pittsburgh, just because of the rumors that surround him, whether they be true or not.
Mm-hmm.
With his time in LA, I don't see Pittsburgh bringing him on. They don't really need him.
Yeah.
They kind of have Hornquist that plays the same exact role that he would. So I don't. That's
and
why.
You could say Hornquist is a better player, and he spends a lot of the time on the fourth line. So
yeah.
I mean,
I just don't know where they would put Kovalchuk, to be honest.
What about Washington? Interesting fit for him on the second power play, playing with Kuznetsov, with Backstrom on the first power play with Ovi.
Possibly. They do have Verana that's on the second power play right now. It's pretty good.
I think Verana's a lefty, though. Okay. So you could have Verana on the left, on the off board, and then you could have Kovalchuk because he's a righty on the left board. And then you could have your two shooters, and then you could have Kuznetsov down low.
He's somewhere. So cheap, I'd expect him to move somewhere.
Yeah. I've heard Boston connected, but I don't know if I like that.
Which would give me I would give props to Montreal for turning basically Scandella into free asset and then Kovalchuk into free asset.
I was biased because every time I play NHL, I always love Kovalchuk, just the way that he skates with his size and his shot. So like I was biased. I was like, Toronto, get him for nothing. Like get him, just because like I would be okay with that. So like I felt he still had some sort of value. I didn't know what it was, but I felt like he could still be in the league somewhere.
Could he not fit in Toronto now?
Yeah. Yeah.
They have a lot of older.
I don't know if I don't know if I'm Toronto if I'm willing to spend anything right now.
Yeah.
Unless it's a defenseman that has term. And the way that I'm looking at it when it comes to that is let's just take a trip here and fast forward a year.
Yeah.
Ignore anything that's happened. It's a year from now. And the Leafs are trying to add a defenseman. If you were a Leafs fan, would you not have no problem trading your first?
For a defenseman?
For a defenseman that has a year or two left on his contract?
I think if they can trade a first for Dumba, right? they do it.
That's what I'm saying. Is a year from now, if you could say, okay, a year from now for Dumba, it's a first and a prospect. You do it, right?
Yep.
So why are we so afraid of trading that pick from next year now when we're going to have him for a full more year?
Yeah, you'll have him to help make it this year and still have him for 2 more years.
Exactly. That's the way I'm looking at it. And yeah, I don't want to like give away the next 2 first-rounders. But if you look at it that way, it makes sense, right?
I'm with you. I don't think the Leafs need to hold on to too much of their draft picks.
And, okay, try not to go on rants. The other thing that Leafs fans need to freaking calm the hell down about is they love these guys like Engvall and Mikheyev and whatever. But they're like, oh, we got to stop trading all these draft picks. And, like, one of the things that's driving me nuts right now is the host, Brian Hayes, on TSN 1050 right now. Okay. Like, I think he does a fantastic job, and I love what he does. But one thing rubbed me the wrong way the other day when he had like a commercial, basically, like a teaser commercial, basically saying that the Leafs have to stop giving their picks away like candy.
Yeah.
The Leafs went and got Mikheyev, who is arguably a second or third line player, for nothing. Don't hear anybody complaining that we got a good player for nothing. Why the fuck are we complaining about trading a pick for nothing? Well, not nothing, but you know what I mean. Losing a pick in a trade. There's probably a better way to verb it. So, like, it's like people just want to have their freaking cake and eat it too. Like, it's It's so frustrating. It's
They,
really
they
getting to
really
a point where it's
expect
like
you to win every single trade and just rip the other team off every time. That's what it feels
people are
like.
smarter now. There's less dumb GMs.
Yeah.
There's less GMs that are
They've,
still there just because they've been there for 10
yeah,
years.
they've run the Sims. They know.
They did it 27 years ago. They'll eventually do it again, right? Unless they die first. I mean,
Yeah.
but still, yeah, it's really frustrating. It's really like I'm frustrated right now, which I can get. Leafs fans are frustrated. Like we've been through 3 or 4 management groups. We've been through 3 or 4 different constructed teams. We've had 3 or 4 different stars. We've had 3 or 4 different goalies, but the same fucking problem is still there. Why? How can all these other things change, but the problem still remains the same?
What do you mean the problem?
They can't play defense.
Oh, okay.
They're soft. They can't defend. They don't try. They don't care.
I can only imagine what it's like playing in Toronto compared to anywhere else.
Well, you get more money for doing it.
You do, yeah.
Which is bullshit because then they fucking complain and whine. Like the thing that pissed me off today, like whatever. But like I heard today in practice that basically all was norm. They're dancing around on the ice, having fun, listening to Lady Gaga and this shit, and just like joking around, doing whatever they call skill enhancement practices or something like that. So basically, like shooting drills, passing drills, stuff like that, where drills. It's like when I used to play and my coach was mad at the way that the team showed up.
We fucking skate lines.
You know what he did?
What?
Next practice, there wasn't a single puck that touched the ice.
Yeah, skate lines.
Why do people play hockey? To touch the puck and shoot the puck and pass the puck and skate with the puck. When you get an hour and a half skate and you don't touch a fucking puck the entire time and you feel like, why am I even carrying a stick in my hand? Like, it's less work and it's less tiresome to even like put that on the ice and do it without. But now I have to even lug my stick around. Next time you get on the ice when there's a puck, you have joy again. You're like, I don't mind trying because I don't want to fucking go through that shit again. So do something. Don't just let them go back out on the ice and yeah. What happened last night? Oh, we won. Oh, I thought you lost 6-2 and you didn't even fucking show up and you played like garbage. Like I didn't catch all the game, but I honestly fast forwarded through a bunch of it because I'm like, why am I dedicating time to watch this trash?
Yeah, the big rematch tomorrow too.
I don't want to watch.
I know I'm gonna have my Pens jersey on, so
it's gonna be a 5-goal difference again.
You think so?
Unless Freddie has like a 48 save, 2-1 overtime or not shootout because they never win shootouts. It's the other thing. If we're so fucking skilled, why don't we ever win shootouts? Ever since it became a thing. You want to know who the second or third best shootout success person is in Leafs history?
Oh, Leafs history?
I forget if he's second or third, but who do you think has the most shootout goals in Leafs history? No.
Who?
Mats Sundin.
What? Like successful shot attempts?
Let that sink in.
Was he even in the league when there were shootouts?
At the very end. Let that sink in. He probably had 5 years of shootouts, 4 years of shootouts.
I'm surprised
and he has the most in Leafs history since then. We've had Matthews 4 years. We've had Marner 3 or 4 years. We've had Nylander. Why can't they score on a shootout?
It's pretty terrible if that's
Why
facts.
Can't Freddie play goalie on a shootout?
Maybe Freddie should take the shots.
Maybe. You know, on another stat I heard today, in the last 9 games, how many times do you think the Leafs have had the same or more power play opportunities than their opponent?
Oh, I heard this one. It was like 1 or 2.
None.
That's what it was. It was 0.
So how are you not drawing penalties? Either you ain't trying, because basically drawing penalties is kind of cheating. So if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. If you aren't drawing penalties, you aren't really trying.
Astros. Yep.
What's that? Yeah, I know, right? So I don't get it. I don't understand why they don't draw penalties. I don't understand why the refs don't call penalties. I don't understand why they can't score on the power play. I don't understand why they can't score on the shootout. I can't understand why they can't defend. I don't understand why they can't play a team game. I don't understand why they look like a bunch of strangers on the ice together. Don't understand. But anyways, off the lease for a minute. I could literally go off on them right now. Like, even more. They're freaking terrible, but waste of time. Where are we going next? Are we doing standings? Where are we going next?
Is there anyone else in the trading block that you wanted to touch that we might not have?
Rattle the names off.
I guess Wayne Simmons is probably one. He's been thrown around a lot, specifically linked to Vancouver possibilities.
He's a sneaky ad. He's a solid bottom line guy.
Yeah, agreed. Mike Hoffman, for some reason, has been floating around a lot today specifically. I guess expiring contract.
I hope he goes because that makes Florida weaker. Because realistically, if Florida trades off like Hoffman and Trocheck, the Leafs are going to backdoor their way into the playoffs because who else is catching them?
How would a trade of Hoffman affect his fantasy value?
Depends on the team it goes to.
Because
he's a shooter.
I just picked him up, so
I know he's a shooter. I did the same thing last year in my other pool. He was doing really well, and I picked him up, and didn't he get traded?
He got traded. Was
2 years ago?
I think it was last. It was 2 years ago because Carlson was on his team too.
Because he was Ottawa, right? And then he went through San Jose to Florida.
Yeah.
So yeah, I traded for him when he was killing it, and then he got Delta, whatever it was, and then he sucked. And I was like, fuck, that sucks. So it depends on which team he goes to. If he goes to a team where he's on the first power play or whatever, getting lots of shots, but he's probably going out west. If he goes anywhere, he's probably going out west, which to me, maybe St. Louis.
Okay. Maybe. I guess
maybe.
One other one, they got Robin Leonard on here, but
I don't think he's going anywhere.
You don't think he goes anywhere?
I think he's a similar situation to what I said about Kreider last week, where I think Chicago really wants Leonard as their guy moving forward. I think they really do. Yeah. But they've got a sensitive thing with Crawford, obviously, and Crawford's winding down, and they've also got, I think, what's his name, Chris D'Elia? Or something like that. No, that's the comedian. Something Delia. Ryan Delia. Something like that. But he's their third goalie that they like. And he's a young kid that they just signed last year before they were able to get Leonard too.
Yeah. He played a couple games last year.
Yeah, he played pretty well too. I'd never heard of him before, so I mean, whatever, right? I don't know, but he kind of came. I want to say he came from the NCAA or something, or somewhere where it's not traditional. It wasn't really on the map of what I was paying attention to.
Yeah.
But regardless, yeah.
That basically, there's a bunch of there's a few Toronto guys on there, a couple Sharks guys, but it's kind of the same story.
Yeah. I mean, with the Sharks guys specifically, the control's in their hands.
Yeah.
I don't think that San Jose is going to be going, hey, you want to go here? Hey, you want to go here? They've probably already gone and said,
this is
you're willing to go anywhere. What are the teams? Just so I know. What teams? Like, tell me now. If it's none, I know it's none, and I'll just tell everybody, no, he doesn't want to go anywhere. If it's one team, I'll
maybe try.
What teams do you think Thornton would say, yeah, I'll go give it a shot, considering...
Would he go back to Boston?
I think there's still bad blood there.
You think so?
His side. I do.
I don't really remember what happened. That
was
long ago.
Well, I mean, him. He's relaxed, right? He's laid back. He's whatever. I think it was just too much of a wound-up city, and it got on top of him too quick.
Yeah.
And when he got traded to San Jose and he could back off and relax and become the player, I think that's real. So I think he's just kind of like been there, done that. No hard feelings, but
yeah,
I don't think so.
I don't really see any Canadian teams for him. Boston, I guess, doesn't really need a center.
No.
So I don't know who like centers. Maybe I guess Edmonton would possibly be the only Canadian team that would even think about it. But I don't know. I don't really.
3 teams, really. Maybe for him.
Maybe Dallas?
I don't think so.
No?
I don't think so. He's had a lot of battles with those guys.
Fair enough.
I don't know. I think the only teams I could see him actually maybe fitting in and wanting to fit in would be Colorado, maybe if they get their goaltender situation out. I don't think he'd go there if that was still the way that was. Mm-hmm. But the 2 teams I'm looking at, probably most likely, because it's the most comparable, would be Tampa. I could see him going to Tampa for like a Yanni Gord or like maybe in a bigger deal for a Killorn. Basically, where Tampa can fix their cap problem that they're going to run into this offseason and just turn it into
I
a
don't
rental
see
and then have that rental disappear.
Yeah, but
to save
I
your
don't
money.
see Tampa trading those guys until after the season.
Yeah, they might not, but I mean, they might. I'm sure there's some fat on that roster that they can find to flip back for
Maybe
Thornton. Or if Thornton said, "I only want to go to Tampa Bay," I'm sure that they'll eat half of his contract or whatever the max is when he's at whatever he's at. I think he's at 1.1
if he
or
only has
1.2.
one team list, they're basically getting nothing for him.
Exactly right. I would have said maybe Toronto a couple weeks ago, but there's absolutely no way he'll step in. But like, imagine him saying, "Yeah, I'll go to Pittsburgh."
Yeah.
Like, you can go to Pittsburgh and play on the bottom line and not do nothing and win a cup.
That's some
It would
crazy
be like,
depth.
who did Pittsburgh do that?
Could you imagine their fourth line, Hornquist, Thornton, and be so slow?
That's what I mean. Like, but they'd probably be good because they play similar games. And Hornquist goes to the net and Thornton passes it to the net. Like, they probably would be good.
A fourth line, yeah.
I don't know who else plays on that line, but that probably man, call me crazy, but I think if both of them go, I just got to my point before I said it. I think that if Thornton or Marleau goes, I think they go together.
Okay.
That's the only way I think that they go. And I could see them both saying, "Yeah, let's both go to Pittsburgh."
I think if they go, they're going on the day, Monday.
Yeah. Imagine though Thornton and Marleau to Pittsburgh, and then that fourth line's Marleau, Thornton, and Hornquist. Give them a cup now, right?
Seriously.
Like, and that would be good for the two of them, right? I mean, Marlowe's whole San Jose record's gone.
Bunch of Canadian boys meeting up with Crosby.
Right?
Jeez, the story's
right. That's not a good fit.
Writes itself, Tori. I think we figured that out.
Right? Playing Washington with that whole like it could be, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Sometimes I have crazy theories, but they all tend to kind of make sense in some way or another.
Yeah. All right, so I think that until next week, I think we'll do next week podcast Wednesday. We'll go over trade deadline.
Okay. Cool.
Unless you want to do an impromptu pod before that, but
maybe if something crazy.
If it's like the craziest day, maybe we'll do like a quick hour episode or something.
Yeah, do a quick recap or something maybe, and skip the fantasy, skip all that stuff, but just do the recap if we do that. But yeah. We will have to do almost like a fantasy special in a couple weeks for the end of the season.
Playoffs. We'll
playoff breakdown.
Some pre-playoff awards.
Yeah.
Trade of the year.
Yeah, exactly. Got to be stuff like that. Worst trade of the year, best trade of the year, biggest trade of the year.
Yeah, GM of the year. Well, maybe that's the end of the season.
That's got to be me by the amount of moves I've made.
Yeah, unless it doesn't pay off.
I know it won't. Actually, I feel way more comfortable now that I've got Vasi and Kachuk. But let's get back to fantasy after.
Yeah.
Doing the standings?
Yeah, I think we've talked about a lot of these teams already throughout the
I think it's settling in a little bit, and I think
it's great.
It's clearing up a little bit.
Yeah. It's interesting. This is the first time on the podcast that we'll start with the East. In the Metro.
Are you going to say what you're going to say? What I think you're going to say?
The first time that Caps aren't on top?
Oh, no.
What do you think I was going to say?
I thought I was going to say the first time the Islanders haven't been in the top.
No, they're still in a playoff spot. I'm going to wait till that disappears. So So we got Pittsburgh leading, so I'm just going to go with my Metro. Right now, the Metro is sitting for me what I think it's going to finish.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh, Washington, Philly, top three. And then you're going to have Carolina is going to be fourth in that, and they're going to take a wild card spot.
Yeah, Carolina, eh?
Yeah. I think they're going to do a trade in these next couple days.
We've got assets. Carolina does.
Yeah.
I think they're the best team here in position to actually make a move. Do something that helps them now and moving forward, because Florida's got a bunch of expiring pieces. They're trending the wrong way, so like they're almost facing a spot where like maybe it is best to flip off some assets and build towards the next time they go for it.
And if you're looking at just like this, I know this doesn't tell the whole story, but goal differential, if you're looking in the wild card section, Carolina is by far
Oh yeah.
ahead of everyone else. So I feel
Yeah.
like I'm really, big fan of Aho right now, and some of those guys. So I think they have a lot of depth, so they could be dangerous in the playoffs. If they get in the
Yeah.
wild card spot, I think I would put them as a top wild card spot.
Yeah.
So they would likely play. Well, here's the thing. I guess they would likely play Tampa, or not Tampa, Pittsburgh, if everything
Yeah.
isn't that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where I would see.
Well, yeah, whoever's the best. Yeah, yeah.
That's my
If
predictions
you
right
pick the
now.
top
As
one,
of
yeah.
my predictions right now.
So who's wild card 2?
My wild card 2 is going to go to. Jeez, this is fucking hard. I'm gonna actually give it to the Islanders. I was on the fence. I couldn't decide. It's either Columbus or
and
the
Islanders?
Islanders. Yeah.
Yeah. I was really hoping for Pittsburgh Philly,
I know you were, but that'll be round 2.
Pittsburgh's just too good. Pittsburgh's just too good. They're gonna win the. I think they might actually win the East.
That's what I was starting to think. They do have 2 games in hand because I think Tampa is the better Atlantic team, and they're going to win the Atlantic. Been saying that.
Pittsburgh should get at least 3 of the 4 points though, and that would
it'd be close.
2
I
points
think
back.
I give the edge to Tampa just because they are in the Atlantic Division.
And Vasilevsky's just.
Oh,
I'm not saying that because I own him, but he's clearly the best goalie in the league. I don't think that's debatable. Like, I think there's a clear difference between him and the next best goalie. But I think the next best goalie might even be Rask, or he'd be in there. But yeah, I mean, Pittsburgh doesn't really have a weakness. They've got 2 good goalies. They've got some depth. I think they could afford to add a guy like Kovalchuk or a guy like Marlowe or Thornton, like I don't really want to call Kovalchuk a veteran, but like an older guy who kind of knows what it's about, who can chip in a little bit, maybe get on the power play or the second power play when it gets a little stale, maybe.
I have no idea what Pittsburgh's going to do when Crosby retires, Malkin retires, man, because they've literally just been building.
They'll be trash for years.
They've been building wingers, selling them for assets, building wingers, selling them for assets for years.
But it's also a cheat code because everyone always says, oh, so this is the other thing that's going on in Toronto, is everybody's complaining about the Pittsburgh Penguins. Because they're like, oh, it's bullshit because all they do is churn out these wingers and their minor league system is so amazing. What makes them so amazing to churn out these wingers? And it's like, you realize that all they do is draft and sign wingers.
That's all they
do. When you draft and sign 1 million of them, there's going to be 3 or 4 of them that are good. They have a good season and you don't believe in them, like Connor Sheary, you trade them off and you bring in the next guy. Yep. They literally. When's the last time they developed a defenseman?
Mariano is he's like the closest.
Okay,
but
you're right. He's still in the midst of that.
Schultz they traded for.
Yeah. But even Oli Mata, you couldn't really say that they developed him.
And they usually almost every trade deadline too. They bring in a defenseman too.
Right. So I mean, they've been bringing in veteran defensemen. Yep. They've tried to have a 2 goalie system so that they can just ride the hot hand. And then they just try and draft and sign these wingers that can find a way to play with the 2 centermen. If both their centermen are hurt and their team crumbles, which it probably should have more than it did this year, then that's your season. Who cares? You get a good draft pick and you come back at it. Right?
Yeah.
That's the way they've been doing it for years. So, like, is it fair to say, oh, all they do that? Okay. Well, you want the Leafs to solve their defensive strategy or solve their defense? For the next 5 years, pick only defensemen.
Hey,
like in the draft.
1 second, okay?
Okay.
Hey, mommy's home. Who's that? All right, sorry about that.
No worries. Forget where it's at.
Leafs developing defensemen, something.
Oh yeah, if the Leafs want to develop defensemen and fix their defense issue, every pick for the next 2-3 years, 1st through 7, don't draft a goalie, don't draft a forward, draft a defenseman.
Oh,
go to Europe, go wherever, sign 5 or 6 more defensemen. in 2 or 3 years, you'll probably have 6 or 7 defensemen that can all play in the NHL.
That's a good point.
And right now, the Leafs...
They should have been doing that the past couple of years, though, instead.
They have been. Which people are dumb to realize that.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Like, so Liljegren... Well, no, because you're not a Leaf fan, right? You're not in this bubble, so, I mean, you can ignore that statement. But, like, people who are in this bubble and want to make statements like that, it's bullshit because it's like, okay, Rasmus Sandin looks like a legit fucking player.
Yeah.
Timothy Liljegren, I'm not sure. But we'll see. Travis Dermott, a lot of people had a lot of hope, but we haven't seen it yet. So it's like we're seeing a couple of guys. They've signed a couple of guys out of Europe that are a year or two away from probably being some solid bottom pairing guys. So, like, if they can figure out their top four, how easy is it to find a new bottom pair every couple of years? It's not very hard at all. So then what do? You spend half your assets on defense, and then every couple of years you bring in this new defenseman that nobody's heard of that contributes. And then you flip them off for a fourth. The next guy comes in. That fourth turns into something else. Like, that's how you just keep the cycle going. And, like, the Leafs are almost there. But then there's also a point where you reach where you're like, okay, like, you're either too full or you're missing something. And sometimes you have to go out and get that asset, take the hit, and then slowly backfill to try and lose that.
But if you're stocking up on a position, that means other teams are losing out on that and will eventually need that position. So it's kind of like, it's like if there's a war or something, everyone's just stockpiling rations, right? Maybe the value of them goes up. So if you're stockpiling all the defensemen, so there's going to be teams out there that haven't been able to get a good defenseman in a while because you've always been taking them, or when they do.
But the Leafs have these forwards, and they've gone out and they've found these other forwards out of nowhere. So continue to go and sign these forwards who can play with Matthews, who can play with Marner, who can play with Tavares. Draft your defensemen, and then try to manufacture goalies. There you go. There's your system. And then in 3 or 4 years, all of a sudden you got 2 or 3 young goalies that you're really happy with that step in like maybe DeSmith or Jari did. A couple of years you have these guys that step in and you're like, oh, where did these guys come from? They can skate. They can pass the puck. Who are they?
Yeah.
Like, so, I think the Leafs just want everything now, and it's like you can't. It's not. It just doesn't work that way.
So with all that being said, then, where do you see the Atlantic Division going in at this point?
Well, I mean, quick Metro. The Metro with those 3 teams are what it is.
Yeah.
Philly's 3. I don't know who's going to be 1, 2, but I want to see Pittsburgh, Philly. So let's say Washington, Pittsburgh, Philly is what I'll do. Even though I just said Pittsburgh could win the East. In the Atlantic, I'll go Tampa Bay, Boston, just because Boston has more overtime loss points. Tampa's the better team, and they've been the better team, and Vasilevsky's God. So, like, I think that they're
10-0-0 in their last 10.
Yeah, so like they're going up, and Boston's not bad, but they're just slowly losing ground.
Boston's 9-1-0 in their last 10. That's kind of crazy.
And they've lost ground.
They've lost ground, yeah.
So, I mean, like, we'll see, right? But, I mean, look at the separation on Toronto now. With that being said, who's the team that's going to take the spot from Toronto if it's not Florida? Montreal's below Buffalo right now.
Buffalo blew their any chance they had. They blew it yesterday.
Not necessarily. They got 1 game in hand, which would bring them to 64 if they win, which is only 6 games back with 20 games left.
6 points is a hell of a lot in this league. It's not only the 6 points, but
is it when the person that had you isn't winning?
I was
what if the Leafs only win 8 of the next 16 games or whatever the number is?
I guess you're right. Like they could go 14-4. Like that's what they need.
Well, how many games are left? So there's 21 games left.
For the Sabres.
Oh, for the Leafs, there's 21. Yeah. So out of 21, if they get 10 wins, it's only 20 points, which takes them to 90. It's like 3 or 4 points under what has been the standard for making the playoffs over the last few years. So it's like, sure, somebody might not step up and take it, but we've seen there's always a team that goes on a run. So which team is it going to be? Probably not Montreal. Probably not Buffalo.
I would say
it's got to be one in Toronto or Florida.
Yeah.
Unless they all suck and they all just go in as the worst team. Whoever happens to straggle in there.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Tampa, Boston, Leafs. That's my prediction. It's been my prediction for 4 weeks now, I think, something like that. I'm sticking with it. I think the Leafs are gonna figure out enough to secure that spot. Whether they're gonna be able to get past Boston.
Mm-hmm.
Very hard to believe by the way they're playing right now.
You know what I do? I was referring to this earlier. I don't know if you read my long essay that I typed out earlier, but
Maybe
it was
not.
basically getting at why I think the Leafs should actually consider trading off, even if it means that they still make the playoffs. Because let's be real, we're hearing Florida's potentially trading off too.
Yeah.
So, like, if you don't have to be the best team and you're not fighting for it, why don't you consider it? Tyson Barrie is a very interesting case to me because Tyson Barrie was paid $5.5 from Colorado. Colorado ate half of his contract, so he's a $2.75 million player right now.
Yeah.
What teams can afford a $2.7 million player? Maybe a couple, right? Maybe a couple. Would they be willing to give a ton up? Maybe a little bit. What if you Leafs ate half of his contract and he was half of 2.75? So he's only like a $1.4 million player. A top 4 defenseman, you could say top pairing, but just to be fair, top 4 defenseman who can play on your power play and be an offensive puck rusher and a guy like that for under $2 million, under $1.5 million, you've probably now got 4 or 5 teams in play that are going for it, that have probably already spent their first rounders and maybe their second rounders. So now you're looking at those next assets. So now you're looking at, you could probably get 2 seconds for Tyson Barrie.
Possibly.
You could turn around and trade a couple other guys off the team that might be of value to other teams. At that point, you're sitting there and you're like, well, the pressure's off.
Can you do that though with the Leafs fan base?
Yeah,
you can,
because the pressure comes off because everyone will say, well, we went for it, we traded off, and we got some assets back. There's no pressure to make the playoffs. Hopefully we do. If we make it, the expectation is we're going to get swept.
The pressure is already to make the playoffs.
But if we trade off, people will be like, it's a failed season if we don't make the playoffs. But at least we didn't
waste it
to do nothing. Like, I think the worst outcome is the Leafs to do nothing and then miss the playoffs. That would be an epic failure.
What about for them to do something and miss the playoffs? Wouldn't that be worse?
It depends on what.
Yeah,
if it's a June or whatever,
what if it's some rentals?
But here's the problem that's even in itself is that their first rounder is not guaranteed because it's conditional on them making the playoffs.
Which first rounder though? Carolina?
The Leafs to Carolina.
Oh, okay.
The pick that Carolina owns. If the Leafs don't make the playoffs, I want to say it's top 10 protected. So if the Leafs win the lottery or whatever, then the Leafs keep their pick.
Okay.
But if not, then it goes to Carolina.
Yeah.
So what if you make a trade for next year's first, but then you miss the playoffs? Carolina's first moves to next year's first. Now next year's first slides to the first after because it would have to be a conditional first. Now you're talking about giving 4 first-rounders up in a row. That's...
Yeah, for a team that's struggling to make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Like, that's where I'm like... Honestly, I would trade Tyson Barrie for a roster player, or preferably maybe a plug that somebody has on D that can play like a Marincin, and get 2 seconds, 1 this year, 1 next year, and then I would take that second, I'd move down once each, and I'd manufacture those seconds into like a 3rd and a 5th or a 3rd and a 4th, and then you could turn Tyson Barrie into 4 picks in the top 100.
Yeah,
and then you could also maybe get something else. Like, I'm intrigued on the potential. I haven't heard any of these connections. I just thought of this recently, and it actually makes a lot of sense. Toronto and Columbus. So Columbus obviously lost Seth Jones, right?
Yep.
So Columbus has Seth Jones coming back next year / later. So, like, they don't really care about later. They just want to continue trying to go this year. They clearly need a guy to step in and play some minutes on the back end. Columbus has been doing perfectly fine the way they have it. Josh Anderson has been out of the lineup the whole year. Leafs have always been connected to Josh Anderson, and I think he'd be a perfect fit, and fans would love him. I want him so bad in Toronto. I wonder if Columbus could have the idea of, hey, we've been doing well without him, but we need a D. Let's flip you, Anderson, we get Barrie, and then whatever else equals it out. I wonder if there's something in there, and then the Leafs moving forward can say, yeah, well, we turned Kadri into this guy, instead of saying we turned Kadri and whatever into a draft pick, which we don't even know who that draft pick's going to be until 4 months from now, and then we don't know who that person's going to be until
3 years.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So then fans just drop out and they don't care about that anymore. So it's like,
I'm a
to
big
me,
fan of
that's
Anderson too,
what
so.
I look at.
Okay.
I would love to get him in Toronto. But yeah, like I think that they should really be looking at doing something like that. I think it's time to move off Gauthier. I think it's time to move off Timashov. I think it's time to maybe move off Marincin if he can get you anything.
Yeah, that's like, what this whole trade deadline. I'm excited because it's going to define some teams and where they're going. Mm-hmm. Some teams are like teetering on what they're going to do right now, and
yeah. But the thing is when you throw people into positions where they're going to fail and there's expectations, you're putting them into a spot where they're not going to succeed and they're going to be hated, especially in a place like Toronto, right? So, like, that's why I feel like if Toronto trades off, it's not waving the flag, but it's saying we're protecting the team and we're managing in the best interest of the team. Yes, we've made ourselves weaker, but the pressure's off now. If we still make the playoffs, the pressure to win a game, like, that will be the bar. Can we win a game? Yeah. What if they lose in 6 and they won 2? Leafs wouldn't. Like the fan base would be like, okay, at the start of the year we expected this all happened, we traded off, and we still made the playoffs and we won 2 games. That's a completely different attitude than fuck this team. We were supposed to make a long run. We spent all this shit. Now we got nothing to show for it. We got swept in the first round. Fuck this team. It's 2 completely different things.
Yeah, you really need the media buy-in because the media can spin the story
fuck
any which
way.
But that's what it's.
Come out and control your message.
That's what I mean. You got to control the narrative.
Exactly. Come out and say, look, like, hey, this offer was way too good to turn up. We didn't plan on losing Riley to injury. We didn't plan on losing Janssen. We didn't plan on having Mikheyev have his wrist cut open. We didn't plan on all these guys. Like, it's just not our year.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to know when to just say
you only have so many bullets in the chamber, right? And you want to waste a bullet on a year that didn't go according to plan at all? Probably not. I'm with you. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, and this is why I've turned my opinion around on the Leafs. Dubas, I know the whole fire Dubas thing was trending.
It's ludicrous.
Dumbest thing.
Let me make that clear. I don't think he should be fired at all. I am mad at the Leafs and all that other stuff, but I put no blame on Dubas at this point. But sorry, continue.
That's why I'm just going. I'm like, in Dubas I trust, and that's what's been so exciting watching the Leafs the past 2 years, whatever. I've really come from never wanting to watch them to at least watching them, and their games are exciting to watch. I'm glad I'm not emotionally invested the way Leafs Nation is.
Yeah.
It doesn't affect me that way, so I can just enjoy the crazy shoot 'em games that they
yeah, well, that's the problem with this style of hockey. There's going to be a lot of ups and downs, and there's going to be a lot of higher ups and lower downs, where you look at a team that's more like, deep or whatever, like let's use Islanders or Columbus.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of peaks and valleys. It's just kind of consistent. You know what you're getting. It's kind of boring and stagnant. What would you prefer? Some people prefer one. Some people prefer the other. I would too.
I do love me some good goalie battles though.
Yes, I love a good goaltender battle.
Just like how in baseball,
like games where it's one goalie playing outstanding and the other, it's kind of like 5-0. Like I like
no.
like a 2-1 overtime game with like 50.
Very much like in baseball, pitching duels. One of my favorite things. 1-0 baseball game.
Yeah.
Complete game shutout. Like
depends. Like I hate the games where it's just like boring as fuck. Like strikeouts, sure, ground balls, double plays, whatever. Like just some sort of motion or excitement. Like even strikeouts are exciting, but like a 5 strikeout complete game, 1-0 win with like 4 hits, to me is boring.
Yeah, I'm talking like 12 Ks. Guy gets his 10th K.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. I'm down with that.
Yeah.
But I just think that the narrative has to change with the Leafs. I think that that's one way for Dubas to take control of the situation is to do one of 3 things: stand pat, which is not taking control, and you're in for a problem. 2, go out and get that guy to fill Riley's role, to calm down the defense, to slot everybody in properly and make the defense better,
Okay, Dumba. Okay.
or trade off, know that it's just not your year. You had a bunch of fluky injuries and serious injuries that there's
Is that the one you'd be most satisfied with? Is if they traded off?
It's hard for me to say that because I would want to know what their possibilities are. Like if they are legitimately in talks for like some other defenseman that we're not really bringing up,
Yeah.
like sure, like maybe they're talking to Florida and for a first and whatever they could get Ekblad. Sure, absolutely, I'd rather see that. Like that's very unlikely, but you know what I mean, right? Like maybe there's somebody we haven't brought up yet that I'd be like
possible.
Yes,
you never know.
Versus Dumba probably versus like another guy where I might say no.
Makes sense.
But it has to be a guy who can play in the top 3 if it's going to be a guy that we spend on. But I don't know. But the other thing I was going to say is that I'm going to make up the numbers because I don't remember them exactly. But they're basically, it was showing man games lost in the NHL.
Yeah.
And I want to say the Leafs were in the middle of the pack. So like, whatever.
Can't really
you can't
point
say,
at injuries. Okay.
You can't really say anything, right?
Yeah, because I know.
But hold on.
Other teams have.
There was another chart that they showed that was man games lost, but I forgot what they called it, but it was basically quality of man games lost. So not just losing your fourth liner all season.
Yeah, like
losing
wins over replacement.
Yeah. So that was Pittsburgh was number 1 because they lost Crosby for however many games,
and
right?
Malkin's been out a couple
and
games.
Malkin,
here and
yeah.
Gensel's been out for the season.
I think Toronto was 7 or 8 on the team for like importance of man games lost. So you could argue that right there, that's the difference of what 10 points on the season, maybe.
Best case scenario,
8 points.
Yeah,
5 points. I think it'd be a little higher for a good team. If your team's good without injuries and stuff.
10 points, you're in the conversation with Tampa right now.
Well, and then you're also talking about a couple games in there where that flu season kicks in and destroys everybody in the team for a couple games, and they're not playing the way that they can, right? So, like, right there, I think that's a plus minus of 8 to 11 points. So right there, exactly, that takes them to only a few points back of the top guys. It puts them ahead of Philly. It puts them right where Washington is. Different styles of game. But if there's consistency there and, like, I don't know. I don't know what the solution is. If I was Dubas, I would know. Obviously, that's a cop-out. But, like, if it's a first plus 3 other things for Dumba, then fuck that. I'm not paying that price. If it's a first plus...
It's got to be a first for Dumba.
I've heard a crazy rumor recently, which I don't believe in, and I don't know what to think. But I've heard it 2 places, which I don't know. But anyways... Jersey eating half of Subban for Janssen because Janssen won't play this year. So why does New Jersey care? Because that will help them be worse. And then Janssen would just come back next year. And then basically the eating of the contract would be the difference of that. There'd be more involved, but it'd be like Janssen, Bracco, and then that first.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'd be a first, but
we'll
if
see.
They're eating
That's
half
one
his
thing.
salary.
We could sit here all night and be like, "This is what he could do." We'll see in 5 days what happens.
It's not very long.
Yeah.
But I would not. I would be put it this way. I would be more comfortable if he traded off than if he went for it. But I'd be more comfortable if he went for it than if he did nothing. So I'll leave it at that. But to do the wild card, I have to pick Carolina and Islanders.
Maple Leafs acquire forward Matt Veranu from the Ottawa Senators in exchange for forward Aaron Luchuk and a conditional 6th.
That's so funny. Aaron Luchuk?
Yeah.
Aaron Luchuk was traded to Toronto from Ottawa in the CC Zaitsev deal. Luchuk played in the ECHL for Ottawa organization because he wasn't very good. And then he went to the Leafs, started in the ECHL, moved his way up for a couple games in the AHL, played really well in the ECHL, and now he's going back to Ottawa.
Yeah, Veranu has appeared in 4 games for the Senators this season, 2 goals, 2 assists.
Are you on Cap Friendly?
No, just on NHL Trade Tracker.
I wonder if Veranu has waiver eligibility. It might be a move where they can send him to the minors for more depth, or a deal to try and help the AHL team.
Okay.
Sounds a bit like a lower level trade.
Yeah, definitely does.
I think that might be
because
they
the
at
West
least
here.
Okay.
Let's move on to the West.
The West Central's obvious.
Yeah, I think the Central is basically where it is. Potentially, Dallas could overturn the Blues. Dallas has been
Blues
playing
are starting to heat it up again. I think Blues are.
If Dallas didn't start off so poorly, what were they, like 1-8 out of the gate? They'd definitely be on top.
They're a good team.
They are, yeah.
Big, strong team. They're probably like the Washington without Ovi of the West.
That's a good call. So Pacific, this is where I think all the interest is.
Mm-hmm. Vegas, we agree on one.
Vegas, we both think is going to be number one. Number two, I think I said this last week. I'm sticking. If I did, I'm not sure. I'm not tracking this, which we should be. But I think the Oilers, even without McDavid, they're gonna be second.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have the Canucks in third. And I think the Canucks, like I said earlier in this podcast, there's another trade coming.
Yeah, I agree.
Guaranteed. Another trade coming. And it's not going to be like some minor elite trade like I just talked about a second ago.
I think it'll be Simmons.
Simmons could be
or another bigger, lower of the roster type guy. I don't know who else would fit that category, but off the top of my head. But
yeah. So that leaves 2 wildcard spots. Sorry, Calgary, you're going to the curb.
Really?
Yeah, I said that last week too. I don't think Calgary has what it takes. I think it might be 3 weeks.
They're a weird bunch.
They just are not as good in every section compared to some of these other teams.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm giving it the first wildcard spot. It's going to be Coyotes. Kemper's going to be coming back. He's going to carry the load.
That could be a good call.
He's going to carry the load, and then
who was the other team?
The other team, I'm going to stick with. I think I said this. I think this might be the same as what I said before. I'm sticking with Nashville.
Interesting.
I'm not sold on Winnipeg being able to hold it together.
Yeah.
But so I'm giving Nashville a slight edge, and that's where I'm gonna go with that.
Yeah, I don't know. Winnipeg has some options here. They've got the capital to make some moves if they want, but they've also had some unfortunate injuries as well.
I'll wait till they make the moves before I bump them up.
Yeah, exactly. If they want to make the moves, it is there for the taking.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't, then I could see Nashville going on a bit of a run here.
I think so. I think you were talking about in the East how there's always that team that goes on a run.
There's always one.
I'm believing it could potentially be Nashville.
Could be. Could be.
Excited just because locally to see what the Canucks do, how they turn out. I think if they make a trade, which I expect them to make, if they miss the playoffs, it'll be a disaster.
Mm-hmm.
Benning would lose his job if they miss the playoffs. So I think he might even potentially lose his job without a trade if they miss the playoffs now. So that's why another reason why I would expect a trade to go through. I just think the Canucks are building for a team now. And it's pretty obvious. They've been doing it ever since they signed Louis Eriksson.
Yeah, seriously.
So
could be interesting. Yeah, we've only got a couple of weeks left here, so it's going to clear up a little bit over the next couple of weeks, but it should be fun.
Gotta say, I'm most excited to see Kemper come back and whether he can be of form. I don't like lower body injuries on goalies can be nagging a little bit. So if there was anything serious, he could potentially not be the same goalie.
And it's also easy as a goalie to kind of tweak things, and then all of a sudden need surgery or something. It was fine, and then you tweak it, and now you need surgery, which now it's because you can't throw your leg out the same way, so you have to do it. So there's a lot of goalies that get injured where it's like, I could play through it, but I can't stretch, and I can't get that save back door. So like I'm not.
Yep.
There's no pulling or whatever, but. Yeah, I think that pretty much sums up the standings breakdown.
Pretty much standings, trades, we've gone over them all. Standings. Yeah, I think anything around the NHL that you wanted to. I think no. I didn't know if you wanted to touch base on that Evander Kane suspension, calling out player safety a little bit. I guess I don't think we talked about the whole. It kind of all goes in one, like the Chara cross check followed by. I think we talked about it last week.
Yeah,
the
a
Cassian
little bit,
skate. Yeah, I don't really.
I don't really want to get into it too much, but I can understand where Kane's coming from. I mean, he's got to this point where he is a quote unquote repeat offender, and now every time he does something that's just over the line, he's going to hurt it or feel it more and more and more. So, like, now from his perspective, he wants to be like, okay, well, if I'm getting suspended, this many games for that, but then this person's getting the same amount of games for kicking somebody, regardless if I'm a repeat offender, then...
Is that how many games Kane got? I didn't even know.
I think it was a 1 or 2 game difference, but that's also because he's a repeat offender. But you can't tell me, regardless of repeat offenders, that somebody kicking somebody... Freaking Happy Gilmore was banned for life for using a skate to try and cut someone.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be real. But yeah, I mean, I think it is a little bit of a joke. I've heard a lot of people that were not fans of the Habs or the Bruins watch that game saying the officiating was terrible in the Bruins' favor clearly, and it's not the first time they've noticed that.
Yeah.
So it's just like, why?
Yeah, it's kind of been on hockey Twitter. It's kind of the running joke right now. Like, Boston's like just gets away with everything.
They always
they kind of did it too. Even the bad news for the Canucks, like when they that series, they basically manhandled the Sedins all series. So, just kind of
they did.
Yeah.
Well, you want to head over to the fantasy chapter?
Yeah, let's do that. What I'm going to do, I'm going to cut the hockey video off, and I'm going to start up a new video. Just going to try that style. So we'll try it for a couple weeks, see how that goes. So
good.
To the people not interested in fantasy, you guys suck. You guys should be interested in fantasy.
But we appreciate you sticking around for this ride.
Something like that. Cool.